I have a story for you guys from Spannabis. It was a pretty wild time while we were out there. Unfortunately, as we still see with the pejorative nature of our colleagues discussing cannabis in America, it's still discussed this way in other countries. I learned a lot about Spain. I learned a lot about Barcelona and how they have the laws they have and just the history of Catalan in general. And it's interesting. The laws that kind of prop up their social club scene there are based on like heroin rules from long ago. They used to like, what a concept, right? It's get the people into a safe place to use what they have to use and get it off the street. So that's kind of that's part and parcel of how they are conducting business now. But there is no other rules. There is no other laws that are written specifically for cultivation. Not even caregiver rules. They can kind of get away with stuff a little bit, but it's very complicated. And as we saw while we were there, they were raiding a lot of the big social clubs, and there was a lot of undercover agent activity near a lot of the clubs. And some of our friends from other countries got stopped on the street, and they were targeted, they were profiled, and it was it resulted in them getting, in some cases, their cannabis taken. I think there was an instance of somebody actually doing a couple days in jail. They got pulled over and they had some cannabis with them. So they're dealing with the same things we're dealing with. And as everybody knows, we're big social justice advocates for cannabis, and across the globe. That doesn't just mean here domestically. That means everywhere where there's a cannabis prisoner, there's some injustice, and something has to hopefully change in Spain. But regardless, it was a great time. And this article is from Lindsay Bartlett, and with such an apt title, at Spannabis, cannabis culture is unstoppable despite the crackdowns. So here we go. Spannabis is a hybrid. It offers up two realities: a peaceful and passionate modern cannabis culture that thrives in the underground versus an old guard of conservative officials who aim to stamp it out. The international cannabis community congregates en masse at Spannabis. In its 20th year, Spannabis is the most packed consumer weed festival I have ever been to in my life, standing room only. An estimated crowd of more than 25,000 attendees found themselves at the Fira Cornella in Barcelona, Spain, over the course of the week leading up to March 15th through 17th, 2024. The event organizers said over 500 companies from seed banks to ancillary were represented on the floor this year. In one reality, cannabis is a decriminalized and celebrated plant, a medical healing modality with a vibrant subculture. The peaceful social clubs offer safe havens for weed refugees. Meanwhile, in another reality, Barcelona's conservative city officials performed mass raids on the clubs during the week leading up to the main event. The raids targeted over 15 private clubs around the city on March 13, 2024, seeking to collect fines, take product, and slap patrons with costly consumption tickets. The cannabis culture is unstoppable, says criminal attorney Marta de Luxan Marco of the law offices of de Luxan and Nieto in Spain. The entire cannabis industry has emerged from illegality. Even though it generates millions of euros in its legal and illegal markets, it is increasingly persecuted in Spain. While other countries replicate our club model, Barcelona City Council seems to have the intention of closing them, but we are not going to let them. The clubs emerge as a response from civil society to the lack of regulation. People risk their freedom to try to ensure that politicians understand that legalization is more beneficial to society than prohibition. The clubs are decriminalized private establishments that offer up vibes similar to the coffee shops of Amsterdam. Their founders are committed members of the cannabis community in Barcelona and represent an amalgam of the international industry leaders. The lawyer explains that even if the city ever did manage to close the clubs, which she believes is highly unlikely, consumers will smoke weed and the industry will carry on growing regardless of the risk. We will continue disobeying an absurd rule that threatens our freedom of choice, says de Luxan Marco. She was part of a powerhouse panel of women in cannabis at La Calada, the original female-centric speaker series during Spannabis Week for 6 years running. De Luxan Marco Deluxe and Marco's head shop called Stoner Supermarket recently moved from Madrid to Barcelona, a city that has been safer for cannabis businesses historically. The reality is that, according to surveys, a high percentage of the population is in favor of legalization. Time has shown that the war on drugs is absolutely ineffective, says Deluxe and Marco. That's one of the reasons it is now regulated for half the world. In my opinion, the regulators and conservative leaders are more representative of the hypocrisy that exists in Spain in relation to drug consumption than the social reality of the country, she says. The attorney explains that fine for possession or consumption on public roads range from 600 to 1 to 30,000 euros, or in harsh cases can lead to prison sentences. We have never stopped consuming cannabis, and our industry has not stopped flourishing. Despite the lack of light and legal insecurity caused by the lack of regulation, says Deluxe and Marco, it is probably the longest civil disobedience movement in history. Spanish officials are pretending that the thriving cannabis culture does not exist. Other locals believe that the goal was to instill fear to permeate the weekend's show. The same fear tactics that those who have lived through the war on drugs know well. We are in the drug war. It's full-fledged. There's a revolution happening here, and I am honored to be a part of it, says Luna Stour, Chief Impact Officer for iSpire on Instagram. It's cool to be able to come to a city that doesn't have legal weed in the middle of a time where the clubs are raided, and at the same time, in a coordinated sting across the city, we're having award ceremonies for outstanding businesses. It's so ironic that we're able to do these normalization moves to try to sophisticate and elevate the scene, and you still got this low vibrational fear-based attack on our community happening in real time. And that's the story. I feel like this, that the vibe in Spain was that there was a heightened sense of like just this rebel nature, and everyone there is doing their part, and they're still way more in the shadows than we are here. So mad respect to all of our comrades over there fighting the good fight, and mad respect to Lindsay and to Luna for sharing their opinions with us on the weekend, and just on the general just sense of things. So thanks a lot. Please, guys, share your thoughts with us in the comments, and my esteemed panelists and our guests, I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I've got thoughts if I can. So I'm remarried now, but my ex-husband is Catalan from Barcelona, from the city, and so I used to live there, and I kind of came up in the cannabis club scene there, beginning like 2009, 2010, and like they're in. It is incredible what happened to the scene post-COVID. It has exploded. It has matured. It has become more cosmopolitan, internationalized. It is just true. I mean, they're, as we know, they're doing hash now that never really used to kind of like be, rosin and stuff like that. That kind of stuff never used to really be a thing. It's just incredible kind of watching it from the ground over the years, and then also watching how quickly it deteriorated. And I just also want to make the point that those laws are rooted in old heroin laws. The heroin crisis that we're dealing with now in the United States happened in Spain in about the 80s and early 90s as the result of Franco dying, the government changing over to democracy, and kind of opening up their economy and sort of joining the modern world from basically like Catholic feudalism to join the European community and eventually the European Union. And the result of that was a social movement called the Movida, which opened up. It was their 60s, but in the 80s. Let's just put it that way. Pedro Almodovar, those movies are like a legacy of that. And the budding cannabis culture and the budding anarchist culture in Barcelona, the squatter culture, the street culture, the skate culture, all came out of that. And so unfortunately did the heroin culture. And so they went through a lot in the 90s, and as a result have really draconian drug laws. And this is all a legacy of that. And it really liberalized in the early 2000s. And socially, they had a more democratic government, and they're experiencing the shadows of Francoism never really went away. Their fascism never really went away. It's bubbling up like it is in the United States, and the drug laws are very much part of that culture war there too.
Yeah, but the thing about fascism in Spain is that it tastes way better than fascism anyplace else, right? It's got that.
It's in their blood.
It's got a little bit of that,
I tangoed with that with my ex-husband was a nationalist, and it was, oh my God, it was a big part of our lives still today, and that Catalan nationalism, that anti-fascism, I mean, he was raised in that, and I had a lot of anarchist and communist friends because it's quite popular there because of that. It's very different, and so yeah, and the flip side makes that fascism very comfy, attractive. It's baked into their government and their culture and their Catholicism, which is the state religion, and yeah.
I'm just really glad that when people go to this international event that arguably has as much cannabis culture as any annual event, that and aside from the fact that this article is from an American publication, I love the fact that they're quoting people from Northern California, and that when we go deeper into the article and the parts that weren't as relevant for what Saman was covering, we can see that Frosty Hash won first place in Spannabis for rosin with the Z Skittle offering, and that its founders, Madison and Jessica, are based in Sonoma County. So obviously I'm geocentric, but big props to NorCal, even on the world stage.
Nice, yeah, I mean, like, nice. I'll be honest with you, Yarrow, like, Spannabis, if you've never been, is probably, like, the coolest event that exists,
do we know,
period.
Do we know what shops were actually raided? And do we know what shops were actually raided? Yes, and did anyone actually like get arrested, or like did they actually go in there and take the product out, or
people got tickets? And there was
people getting tickets is normal. That's not what I'm asking.
This happens every year. I mean, not clubs getting raided, but I went to Spannabis and it's out there for the full week, pre-COVID and post-COVID a couple times, and I mean, almost every year people are getting arrested in some sort of event.
I understand the arrest. I'm speaking in regards to the raids. I want to know about the raids, if people were actually like detained or taken out in handcuffs. Anyone actually went to jail, or did they just go in there and just take shit?
Yes, there was people that were like taken to jail and had to do like a night or two there while they waited for their magistrate hearing or whatever. I mean, yes. Definitely, but I don't, I'm not like.
So they took like the owners to jail.
No, I don't know. I don't know about that.
That's what I'm particularly asking about.
Look, I don't know exactly. There was like 14 or 15. It says there was like 14.
Well, because there's a big difference. There's a big difference between like actual real raids and them just coming in and fucking shit up and then leaving.
It says there was 14. It says there was 14 raids that were executed on the same day. So it was a coordinated effort. So I don't know if it was a shakedown, whatever it was. They come in there hot. Bunch of cops while you're trying to like throw events, shit, it's not
so Justin in the chat, he says that HQ was raided. I have heard that
they were raided. They were raided.
And he says that no one did go to jail, that it was they basically just came in there just to push their weight around, and that was it. He says it was not real.
I mean, there was so many.
It was not real raids.
There was definitely somebody that was from California that got arrested with product in their car. I don't know who it is exactly, or I'm not gonna.
I don't know, bro. I smell an informant.
That is confirmed.
I smell an informant. That's what I smell.
It's that same guy from Idaho. He was over there too. He was spreading it out and trying to figure out how he could get to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting though that the woman that they quote in this article owns a dispensary, but she's also a criminal defense attorney. And unfortunately, with what we're sharing today, that's probably what it takes to be a good dispensary owner, is you probably need a law degree in criminality just to be able to sidestep all the minefields in this hodgepodge approach to both prohibition and tolerance. Doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, either way, it didn't really stamp out anything. No one was really that concerned. But people, if you were smart, you were just a little more cautious, and you were just, you were really looking out. I mean, it's hard not to just be in awe in that city. It's so gorgeous, and you're, as somebody that's never traveled to Barcelona, I was definitely on some like, I caught myself like looking up like a dumb tourist, but that's just how it's an awesome place. But either way, the like I said, the level of spirit that they have, rebellious spirit, those people are and just generally, I think it's just palpable in that city. I think when you're there, it just kind of takes you over. So mad respect.
Yeah, shout out to the Spaniards, because after all, they are conquerors.